Hi everybody, Matt and Tom back with you. Today we're in Rochdale. Now who would have thought back in 1898 when Grace Stansfield was born here that she would be one of the biggest stars of film and comedy and variety shows in the 1930s and 40s. Of course she wasn't known then as Grace Stansfield. She'd taken the stage name of Gracie Fields. Plan for this video is to head round Rochdale and look at some of the various locations we know that maybe Gracie was lived at, worked at, performed at, and a few other bits on the way. This is not an overall story about Gracie Fields' life. It's purely Gracie and Rochdale and how the two are kind of inextricably linked together throughout her 80 years on this planet. So let's see what locations we can find and how they link in when we get there. So although Gracie was born here January 1898, the story has to begin, of course, with her parents. Ahead of us is St. Chad's Church, which was the location of the wedding between Fred and Jenny Stansfield, Gracie's parents. So they got married there in 1897. And when Gracie was born, she was baptised here in 1898. Now we're just currently in the old graveyard that's next to the church. And this is a very interesting one that Tom's found. It's obviously a mason stone. And it's for John Rutter, but it says at the bottom, 1813, the first interred in this burial ground. Now, how many other graveyards have you been to where it says, here is the first person buried? I can't think of any others. So let's have a quick look around St. Chad's from the outside. And see if we can find the purple plaque, because there are a number of purple plaques to look for as opposed to blue ones that show us stories to do with Gracie. Now some of them I already know after checking last week have vanished, unfortunately, so that's the nature of it. So it is a fairly impressive church. I'm not totally sure if it's still open and used as a church. However, we do have a bit of history right here. Look, the old stocks. But yeah, let's continue our journey away from St. Chad's Church. And here we've got our first plaque outside the church. Next we come to Molesworth Street and the location of where Gracie was born. She was actually born in the upstairs bedroom of number 9 Molesworth Street, the site of a fish and chip shop run by her grandmother called Chip Sarah. That row of houses was demolished in 1953. We couldn't find the purple plaque, but the original plaque that was put here by Alderman Brinning, who I think was a mayor of the town, is still here on the corner. But yeah, this is the location. This is the chip shop. This is Chip Sarah. And this is the plaque. So this is Barron Street. There's two locations here to show you. One is this location here behind me, which is now a car park, is where Gracie's former home was after she moved from Molesworth Street. Now there's a plaque on there saying it's across the road, but interestingly, this building here also plays its part in Gracie's story. So the plaque tells us that Gracie's home was across the street on the car park corner, and she lived there from 1902 to 1910, but has long since been demolished. Around the corner here is 45 Kenyon Street, which was the theatrical boarding house where Grace was first discovered. It's also where Joy Division once performed. The plaque itself is actually on the former Castle Works. Now this was owned by Alderman Brinning, who we've already mentioned. And Grace's mother went here to get some cards printed for her. Brinning suggested that Grace Stansfield was too long a name, and at this point it was then shortened to Gracie Fields, her new stage name. And if you get a chance to look at YouTube, This Is Your Life 1960 for Gracie Fields, you'll see the then 93-year-old Mr. Brinning, an experience his rather wonderful voice. Next up is Champness Hall. Now, after World War II, Grace's show, called Our Working Party, was broadcast live here in 1947. Here's once again a plaque showing us that info and about Champness Hall itself. The show once again pushed Gracie Fields back into the limelight. The building still stands today, although I think it's now offices inside here. Next, we're at the wonderful Rochdale Town Hall, just currently have some work underway. The work's been going on a while, but it is making this area look fantastic. And it was a site of many return visits for Gracie. She would often stand on the balcony, and her adoring public would be found at the bottom waving to her. And she's still found outside the town hall today in this statue. The statue is apparently based on what Gracie would have looked like around the 1950s. Across from the town hall and through the memorial gardens, we find the location of the Hippodrome. This is where Gracie first did a professional performance in around 1910, so she'd only been about 12 years old at the time. This is what the Hippodrome looked like back in the day. So now we're in the centre of Rochdale, where there are some fascinating buildings, and we are looking for one or two particular ones here. But I mean, look at this one here, Rochdale Vintners 1911 Wine Lodge. Beautiful. We immediately find our next location, which I think is now a Wetherspoons pub, but was the Regal Moon Cinema. On a return visit here in 1949, Gracie performed a charity concert. This is what the theatre looked like. In 1978, on her last visit to Rochdale, she opened the Wheatsheaf Shopping Centre, which is now closed. This is the site of the former Rochdale Observer newspaper offices. Gracie laid the foundation stone here in 1954, and the cornerstone inscription is still visible today. Also in 1978, the Gracie Fields Theatre opened. Here she is unveiling a plaque at the location which is still open today, but wasn't on the route of our journey today. And just 1 year later, on September 27th, 1979, Gracie Fields passed away. She's buried in a cemetery in Capri, where she lived quite a few years at the end of her life. She's buried there in a marble tomb. 125 years since she was born in Rochdale, the town still remembers their hero. Despite the town being a very different place today as it was in Gracie's time. Okay, so that's our whistle-stop tour around some of the Gracie Fields locations in Rochdale. So we finish back here on Molesworth Street, where for Gracie it all began. Alright guys, take care, we'll see you soon on the next video. Bye.
Walter, Walter, take me to the altar.